People in Sri Lankan capital Colombo are suffering for weeks under a terrible economic crisis. Erupted in protests late on Thursday evening. More than 5,000 people held a protest march in the Lankan capital near the president's house, demanding that he step down. Clashes were taking place with the police. The parliamentary police unit, a special task force, had to be called in to quell the protests. 45 people have been arrested, and the government has said that the protests were organized by an extremist group. There's been a critical shortage of food and essential items, fuel and gas as well, for weeks now as the country grapples with the worst economic downturn since its independence. Here are some of the reactions of the people in Colombo.
මේ රජයට කිසිම බරක් නැහැ. බරක් තියෙන මට හොඳට මිල මුදල් තියෙනවා. මගේ හැබැයි මිල මුදල් වලින් කිසිම වැඩක් නැහැ. මොකද මට තියෙන කොච්චර පර්චේසින් පවර් එක. ඒ කියන්නේ මට සල්ලි තිබුණත් බඩු ගන්න බෑ. මට පෙට්‍රල් ගහ ගන්න බෑ. මට ඒ වගේ මේ උදාහරණ කීපයක් කියන්නේ. මට ගිහිල්ලා ගෑස් සිලින්ඩර් කිව්වද ගෑස් එකක් ගන්න විදියක් නැහැ.
ඒ මම රෝගියෙක්. මගේ බෙහෙත් තියෙන ස්පෙක්ටි ඒකේ කූල් එකේ තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් ඒව සැර බාල වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් මොනවා වෙයිද දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒකක් ඉතින් ඊයේ රැන හුවා දුක් විඳ. මේ අපේ පුංචි ගෙවල්නේ රස්නේ මදුරු ඉතින් ਉਹ කරදරේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
කාරන්ට් එක නැතුව කියන්නේ දැන් ඊයේ පැය 10යි අද දැන් පැය 13ක් කපනවා කියනවා. දැන් මේක ෆ්‍රිජ් එකේ තියෙන ටික අපේ මේ ඔක්කොම මස් මාළු ටික ළමයිගේ කිරිපිට මේවා ටික ඔක්කොම සවුත් වෙලා යනවා. ඉතින් මේ ළමයි ගෙදර ඉන්නේ නැහැ ළමයි ආඬනවා. ඉතින් පුදුම රස්නයක් තියෙන්නේ රජෙන් අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ මේකට මොකක් හරි සාහනයක් දෙන්න කියලා.
මේක නම් ඇත්තටම හෙනම කරුණ මේකක් වගේ තමයි. මොකද මේ ව්‍යාපාරයක් කරමින් මේ කරගන්න විදියක් ඇත්තෙම නැහැනේ. මොකද ස්කේල් එක වැඩ ගන්න නැහැ. බඩුවක් කිරා ගන්න විදියක් නැහැ. එතකොට බීම බේවන යෝගට් විකුණන විදියක් නැහැ. අයිස්ක්‍රීම් විකුණන විදියක් නැහැ. මේ මස් ජාති විකුණන විදියක් නැහැ. හරි අමාරු කාලයයි ඉතින්. මොකද මේකත් වගේම එළියට ගිහිල්ලා ජීවත් වෙනවා. වෙන බඩු මිලත් වැඩිනේ ගන්න.
And during those protests last night, a police bus was set on fire. My colleague Shrija is in Colombo and she sent us this ground report.
What is the situation right now outside the president's house? Because they're already trying to storm through the barricades.
Some people, some political people.
Senior officer telling us that the situation right now, he's of course, though the kind of number that we are looking at, in fact swelling over 5,000, the officer is confirming that, they are able to manage the crowd, but remember the cops, they don't clearly, in fact, they don't really have much in strength. The mob that you see right here outnumbers the cops that have assembled right here. You have a fire and rescue team who have come. The reason is because what we understand onto my right that we can show you visuals right here is the bus, the police van that's been set on fire. Now that is the situation at the moment that we're looking at. Of course, right now the fire rescue vehicle is trying to make its way through the particular crowd. The huge mob gets gathered over here. The mob right now is sending the fire and rescue vehicle. They're just asking them to exit from here, exit from this particular stretch of road. Of course, the situation is very tense at the moment, and though the senior officer is told that he's got the situation under control, that's not something that we're looking at the moment. With camera person Govind Murthy, Shrija for NDTV.
There you just saw protests taking place late last night in Sri Lanka with people that have been suffering for weeks. They set this bus, a police bus, on fire. More than 5,000 people held that protest march in Colombo near the president's house, demanding that he step down. There were clashes with the police. In fact, violence broke out. 45 people had been arrested during those protests late last night. Now, we spoke with Shrija a little earlier. Let's just find out what the situation is like on the ground this morning.
Well, it's a very tense atmosphere that we're looking at this point in time, because what we are also looking, understanding on ground from where we are reporting from, just a few, kilometers away from the President's house. What we do know at the moment is that several police officers, officials, including especially Special Task Force, have been deployed at various vantage points, because the information that they're receiving is that, in certain pockets of Colombo, quite a lot of people have gathered in huge numbers. So anytime protests may break out, and it is, keeping that in mind, we understand Special Task Force has been deployed on ground. Now, that apart, late last night, what we did, of course, witness was from protests that which started with only just about 1,000 to 1,500 numbers. We did see where, the police van, and also not just the police van, but also the water cannon. In fact, the vehicle was, in fact, passing through the streets of in and around near the President's house. And they also ensured to keep, especially these protesters who also went unruly, to keep them at bay. We see that, in fact, they also used the water cannons. That apart, we also understand just a few hours later, there was arson that was reported right outside the President's house. A police van was set on fire. There was a police van which was stationed right in this particular road which leads to the President's house, to ensure that no protesters enter to that particular narrow lane. So the mob, that which was just about 1,000 to 1,500, clearly swelled to over 5,000, and they outnumbered the number of especially the cops and the Special Task Force team. Several police men were also injured in this particular incident. Not just the policemen, but we also saw various demonstrators who were also a part of that protest were also injured, and they were immediately taken to a nearby hospital. But the latest that we are understanding from the Sri Lankan police is that nearly 45 persons have been taken into custody. Amongst the 45 also includes one woman. From the presidential, the media division, we are also hearing is that there could be a extremist group who could have orchestrated this entire protest. But on ground, we're also hearing the next few days is going to be very critical, because various large protests and huge demonstrations are being planned across Colombo, because what we see here is the anger on the faces of the people, and that's the reason. One of the major questions that they kept asking was, there is power in and around the surrounding areas where the president lives and other, in fact, officials and ministers live, but why can't there be electricity elsewhere? That was one of the major questions. There is no water, there is no fuel. So these were the questions that were asked by the protesters, and they also demanded the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.